All right, ready to dive into this. We're tackling customer expectations today. And let me tell you, the psychology behind it is fascinating.
That's really interesting stuff.
Yeah, we're doing a deep dive into this CARSI article, from the
Yeah.
Cleaning and Restoration Science Institute.
Yeah.
They've got some seriously insightful points about how customer expectations play out in the real world.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know what? This isn't just for folks in the cleaning industry, even though that's their focus.
Right.
This is something that applies across the board.
Absolutely. Any business.
Yeah, any business that deals with, well, humans can learn something from this.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, it's all about people.
Exactly. And we're going to be talking about actionable strategies.
Oh, yeah.
Things you can actually implement to up your game when it comes to customer service. So, I mean, it's easy to think, oh, I've got great employees, therefore I've got happy customers.
Right. You would think so, wouldn't you?
But it's not always that simple, is it?
Not always, no. This article, it really highlights that sometimes, even with a skilled team, you don't always hit that customer satisfaction mark.
Yeah, just because you're amazing at what you do
Right.
doesn't necessarily translate to being amazing with people.
Exactly. And this article even names it, calls it the autopilot effect.
The autopilot effect, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it's like you get so used to the routine. You've been doing it for so long.
Right, you're on autopilot.
Exactly. You stop picking up on those individual customer cues, those little things.
It's like that study they mentioned, the one from the Harvard Business Review.
Oh, yeah.
It basically said that those employees who had been around the block a few times,
Mm.
they could actually be worse at dealing with individual customer needs.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, just because they're so used to, I don't know, like just going through the motions.
Yeah, just cruising.
Right. And they're not really stopping to think, okay, what does this customer need in this moment?
It really highlights how routine, that thing that helps us in so many ways can sometimes work against us.
Absolutely. That's such a good point. And it's not even always about just experience, is it?
No, not at all.
It's also about what we bring to the table that day as people.
Yeah, our own baggage, right?
Exactly. We've all been on the receiving end of service where you can tell, oh, this person's having a day.
Oh, absolutely. You can just feel it,
You
right?
can just feel it.
That it's not you, it's me.
Right.
But also, you kind of are playing a role in this whole thing.
Totally. And the article even mentions this, that it's not just anecdotal.
Yeah,
They've got data to back it up.
they do.
Hmm.
There was this Gallup poll, right? And they found that employees with higher levels of stress in their personal life
Okay.
were something like 34% less likely to engage positively with customers.
Wow, 34%. That is significant.
That's huge. It really shows how our personal lives, our mood, it all bleeds into these interactions, whether we realize it or not.
It's like a ripple effect almost.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's not even about like bad moods or stress.
Ma-
Sometimes it's just a lack of clarity, right?
Wait, what?
Like we're not even speaking the same language.
Exactly. And that jargon gap, right? It's so easy to forget that what's obvious to us in our industry, it might as well be a foreign language to someone outside of it.
Totally. Yeah.
And, there was this customer think study they cited, and it basically said that customers are way more satisfied when things are explained clearly and simply.
That makes sense.
Like, yeah, no duh, right. But it's easy to forget.
It is. It really is. It makes you think, like, how many times have I probably confused somebody without even realizing it?
Right. Just by using, our normal way of speaking.
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting because it's not just about, like, being polite
Right.
or avoiding jargon. It's about understanding the psychology that's actually happening during these interactions.
The psychology behind it all.
Yes. And this article does a great job breaking down those psychological principles.
Oh, it does. It talks about things like the halo effect. Have you ever heard of that in relation to customer service?
The halo effect. Tell me more. That sounds intriguing.
It's all about first impressions, really.
Okay.
That very first interaction, it kind of sets the tone for the whole customer experience,
Right. So if that goes well.
Exactly. A strong start. It's like you get this halo effect
Okay.
where even if there are, little bumps in the road later on,
Mhm.
the customer's more likely to be forgiving, because that initial impression was so positive.
So, like, if the person who greets me at a restaurant is super welcoming and friendly, even if they forget my drink order later, I might be a little more understanding.
Exactly. It's like they've built up that goodwill up front.
Right.
And think about it. We do this all the time, right? Like when we meet someone new
Yeah.
and they've got that great smile, instantly we're more open to them.
Oh, 100%.
It's just human nature.
It's so true, and I've even noticed it in my own business. Like,
Rightly.
when we really nail that first interaction, whether it's on a phone call or even just an email exchange,
Yeah.
people are just, I don't know, more understanding if there's a slight hiccup down the line.
It makes a huge difference.
It does. First impressions are everything.
They really are. And, speaking of powerful first impressions, we've got to talk about emotional contagion.
Oh, yeah.
This one is fascinating because it shows how emotions are literally contagious.
You mean like if you're around someone who's really happy,
Yeah,
their good mood can kind of rub off on you?
exactly. You experienced it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But the thing is, and this is where it gets really important for customer service, the same goes for negative emotions.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right, so if an employee is stressed or disengaged,
Yeah?
the customer picks up on that and they start mirroring those feelings.
Wow.
So even if you're saying all the right things...
It's not what you say, it's how you say it kind of thing.
Exactly. It's that underlying feeling.
That energy.
Exactly. So having a calm, positive demeanor, even in a tense situation,
Right.
that can totally turn things around.
You're blowing my mind right now because they actually mentioned this in the article, that study they cited.
Yeah, what'd they say?
It said that something like 48%
48%, wow.
of the variance in customer satisfaction
Mm-hmm.
could be linked back to this whole emotional contagion thing.
That's huge.
It's almost HALF.
Yeah, it's massive.
It makes you realize how important it is to make sure your team feels supported and appreciated,
It really does. Investing in your employees' well-being,
Yeah.
it's investing in customer satisfaction. It's one and the same.
Wow. I'm going to just sit with that for a minute. That's a good one. Okay, so we've got the halo effect, emotional contagion. What about that third principle they talked about? Confirmation bias.
Oh, yeah, confirmation bias.
I feel like we've all fallen victim to that one at some point or another.
We all have, it's that tendency to, seek out information that confirms what we already believe.
Right, even if it's not the full picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in customer service, that means if someone walks in already expecting a negative experience,
Oh, I've been there.
they'll find it.
Oh, yeah.
They will focus on anything that reinforces that expectation, even if it's the tiniest thing.
Like, you go to a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
And it's gotten, mixed reviews.
Right, so you're already on edge.
You're already on the lookout for flaws.
Exactly. And that's where transparency from the business is key.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Like setting those clear expectations up front,
Yeah.
that can really help, lessen the impact of confirmation bias because people aren't going in blind.
It's about managing expectations from the start.
Exactly.
Hey, this is fascinating stuff, all this customer psychology.
It's really interesting.
But what do we do with this information?
Yeah.
How do we take these principles and actually apply them in our businesses?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And luckily, this article doesn't just leave us hanging. It provides some really practical solutions.
Okay, good.
And it all starts with training, which might seem obvious.
Right, training is key, but it's got to be more than just a one-time how to be nice seminar.
Yeah, you're telling me. It's got to be ongoing. That's what they emphasize in the article.
Continuous improvement.
Exactly. Regular refreshers on communication skills,
Okay.
empathy, and especially those tricky customer situations, those are gold.
Yeah, those curveballs that you just don't see coming.
Exactly. Got to be ready for anything.
For sure. It's I don't know, anything else you don't expect to be good at something if you never practice,
100%. And this Deloitte stat they mentioned, it really stuck with me. Companies that prioritize that continuous training, they were a whopping 74% more likely to have better customer loyalty.
74%, that's huge.
It's a game changer. And it really shows you the power of investing in your team, right?
It really does.
Okay, now another thing they talked about, transparency.
Oh, right, like we were saying with the confirmation bias, getting ahead of any negativity.
Yeah, exactly. Setting those realistic expectations right off the bat. But it goes even deeper than that. It's about explaining every single step of the process, even the stuff that seems obvious to us.
Right, because what might seem basic to someone who's been in the industry forever
Exactly.
could be totally new information for a customer.
100%. Never assume, always explain.
Good advice.
And on top of that, the article really stressed two-way communication.
So it's not enough to just, tell customers what's up. We've got to make sure we're actually listening to them, too.
You got it. And following up after the service is done, that's crucial.
Shows you care.
It does. And it's not just about being polite. It's about catching those potential issues before they become big problems.
Right. Get ahead of it.
And it reinforces that positive first impression, that halo effect we were talking about earlier.
Right, right, because you've already built that foundation.
Exactly, exactly. And all of this, the training, transparency, the communication, it all comes down to empathy, really.
It's funny because it sounds so simple when you say it like that,
Hmm.
Treat others how you'd want to be treated.
Golden rule.
Yeah, but actually putting it into practice day in and day out,
Yeah.
that's the hard part.
Yep. It is. It takes effort, which is why they talk so much about actually training for empathy.
Yeah, make it a habit.
Exactly. And one of the things they mention, I thought this was brilliant. They said, encourage your employees to approach each interaction as if it's that customer's very first experience with your business.
Oh, I like that.
Powerful, right?
It is because it takes the pressure off of like having all the answers, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's more
yeah.
about meeting the customer where they're at.
100%. It's about understanding their perspective.
Love it.
Oh, and before we wrap this up, I got to mention this last stat from the article. They cited this PwC's survey.
Okay.
And get this, 86% of customers said they'd be willing to pay more for better service.
86%.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. They're literally saying, give me the good stuff, I'll pay a premium.
That's wild. It really highlights like investing in customer service. It's not just some, nice to have. It's a smart business move.
It's essential. And it applies across the board, doesn't matter what industry you're in. It's about building those relationships, making people want to come back for more.
Yeah, that loyalty, that's priceless.
Yeah.
This whole conversation has really got me thinking.
Yeah.
Like, they focused a lot on the employee training, which, don't get me wrong, that's crucial.
Of course. Yeah.
But it makes you wonder about the systems we have in place,
Hmm.
Like, could our own internal policies be holding back good customer service without us even realizing it?
That's a really good question and one that's worth considering.
Yeah, because sometimes it's not the people, it's the process,
It's easy to miss those things when you're in the thick of it.
Absolutely. This has been fantastic, by the way. So insightful.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
So much to think about. Remember, everyone, even those little tweaks can make a big difference. Keep those customer interactions positive. Keep learning and keep exceeding expectations.